Something I usually don't do on the channel, but probably should. It's a book review. Hey, Autism Fitness founder Eric Chessen, leading the movement for movement. And in this edition of Autism Fitness Tuesday Training, a book review, actually, or a book synopsis that leads into some of the most important aspects of strength training for the autism and neurodivergent population. And the overarching theme here is that strength training is applicable to everybody, regardless of a diagnosis, non-diagnosed, undiagnosed. Strength training is going to enhance every aspect of our lives. And of course, when I saw Stronger by Michael Joseph Gross, picked it up immediately. I highly recommend that you do too. I'll put a link to this book below so that you can grab it and read it. But really some fascinating stuff. I was about to toss it, but let me put it down nicely, gently, because I'm still finishing up the conclusion here. But one of the overarching themes that's really important is that for a very long time, we have known categorically that strength training can enhance multiple aspects of everybody's lives. And I'll siphon it off and make it more specific for our neurodivergent population. But for humanity as a whole, getting stronger through repetitive, oftentimes stressful enough, resistance training with a high enough intensity is going to produce benefits that you are simply not going to get, not only from any other general modality, but even from any other fitness modality. Is aerobic training important? Absolutely, for cardiovascular health. Can sports or martial arts or other physical activities be great? Yes. However, they do not compare with the myriad benefits that progressive strength training is going to build. So from a physical perspective, yes, obviously, hence the name, strength training is going to build strength. And there are multiple different types of strength as well that we should keep in mind. I think that one of the things, bringing it over to the autism population, one of the things that is a common misconception is that strength training is just either one of the two extremes, like maximal strength training, like, oh, lift as heavy weight as you possibly can for one repetition, which is also called powerlifting, and that's not what we're doing because it's highly specific. Or more often than not, it is confused with bodybuilding, which is another extreme. Not necessarily good, not necessarily bad, but it's another extreme where the goal is to create as much hypertrophy or muscular development as possible. But in the middle there is the true benefit, and that's what we can bring to every population, including the one that we're discussing here. Strength training is going to build stronger muscles that are going to lead to a higher quality of life by way of being able to do more things independently. That's the proactive side. And then there's the preventative side as well. The preventative side is that as we age, and this is something that I never hear about. I'm curious, leave it in the comments below if this is something that you have ever heard about with any symposium or conference or presentation on adults or aging adults on the autism spectrum with relation to the degeneration or atrophy of muscle over time, because it happens to everybody. This is what happens. The muscles begin to degenerate, especially with non-use, for everybody as they age. So there is a preventative quality, a very, very important, one could say critical quality of strength training, both in development and maintenance for adults and older adults. Now, take a couple seconds, think about if you've ever heard that discussed in a seminar or symposium, some type of presentation about older adults with autism and the challenges they face. You're probably not going to hear it, unless it's me presenting. And I don't say that out of ego. I say it's something that either goes unnoticed or is just completely ignored. And that is a critical I mean critical mistake. So we take the physical strength component, the motor skill component. As we know, and this might be new to you, but if you watched the channel for a little while, you probably are aware, many, if not most individuals on the autism spectrum experience some type of motor planning or motor control delay or deficit. Strength training is going to enhance that neural network and that neuromuscular capability to do a task not only more independently, but more efficiently as well. So the individual uses less energy to complete that task. That's a big deal, because if we look at what happens when people age, not only are they less able to complete those tasks, getting up and down, not only just stairs, but out of a chair. That's a big deal. Now, for a lot of children or adolescents on the autism spectrum, we don't necessarily look at them and say, oh, we better have a plan for them being able to get out of a chair when they're 60 or 70, but that still exists on that continuum as well. So that's a big part, is looking to the future and how much strength training plays a role in that. But that's something that virtually nobody discusses. But in this book, it's outlined with the neurotypical population how vital a role, even with senior citizens who, on average, not quoting exactly, but some gained 100%, 200% of strength even as octogenarians, even into their 90s, when they had a basic strength training protocol. And I'm going to get to that for the autism population as well. So one of the other big barriers to strength training, in addition to the misconceptions about what strength training is for the autism population, is that there are all these other things that oftentimes take precedence or take over. And these are things that I've discussed before, but they were even more evident after reading the book. Now, the book has very little to do with the autism population itself, but again, you can take this information and apply it, because it's clearly a microcosm. If we're not really doing this in the general population, how are we to be expected to do it on a large scale and appropriately and effectively for the autism population, it being integrating progressive resistance and strength training programs. So the other thing that is missed here is prioritization. This is something I talk about a lot in these videos. Prioritization, meaning this is important enough that we are going to implement it for this population. And, you know, we hear all of the standard therapies, and by no means are these not important. But when we're talking about behavior therapy and speech therapy and academics and life training skills, all of these, no joke, all of these can be enhanced by strength training, by being fitter, by being more capable. There are cognitive benefits that come from strength training. And then we get into the emotional benefits. There is clear evidence that strength training can decrease some of these symptoms of depression and even anxiety. I don't know how familiar you are with the autism population. If you're watching this channel, then probably somewhat to very, very familiar. How many of our autistic population experiences anxiety? And having a modality that is not a pharmacological, although pharmacologicals can and pharmaceuticals can absolutely be used with a great amount of efficacy. But imagine having exercise be the modality that decreases that anxiety and increases one's, even we could say, confidence and emotional well-being, because it has self-regulatory effects. Now, when you're doing something difficult, i.e. strength training, in the moment it might be uncomfortable, but this can lead to resilience. it can lead to enjoying things that are challenging, and it can lead to having a greater sense of self and to that confidence, because you're capable of doing these things that you weren't capable of doing a week ago or a month ago or even yesterday. And these are the things that we can bring to our autism population through strength training. So here's the third thing. And the third thing is the implementation. The third misconception, and there's a lot about this in the book as well, is that exercise is just this thing that automatically happens. Like you walk into a gym. I make the analogy sometimes, you can walk into a bank. It doesn't put more money in your account. Would be great if it did, but it doesn't do that. You can walk into a gym, but if you don't know how to plan out a program, if you don't know how to do the exercises, if you don't know the difference between a controlled tempo on an eccentric or even what an eccentric is, you're not going to get the most out of it. And the environment also has to be aligned with the sensory needs of that particular individual. There's a lot to know. By the way, that's why we have our Autism Fitness Certification, because we need to have a system that works for every individual. But I digress. If we look at exercise as just this thing, then we don't give it the respect that it deserves, and understand that there are a multitude of different areas or different fields of science that we need to understand and need to be able to implement in order for an exercise program to be effective for individuals on the autism spectrum, particularly when they have challenging profiles, when they're frequently dysregulated, when there's high anxiety, when they have limited gross motor control. How do we modify exercises? How do we provide positive behavior support? What do we do when an athlete is dysregulated? What do we do when an athlete does not want to participate? What do we do when a verbal prompt is not landing for that athlete, and all of a sudden we're stuck there trying to figure out how to teach this push-up or how to teach this band row, or how to use phrasing that's not necessarily going to work for this particular individual. The reality is there's a lot to know. So if we don't prioritize fitness as a life skill and resistance training as an effective modality for all of these different things for the autism population, then how do we create a standard of practice? Because if the thing itself is not that important, then the people who implement it, well, how credentialed do they need to be? How much training do they need to know? What does a good program look like as opposed to just moving around a lot, right? If the standards were higher, the practice would be better. But right now we're still at the place, and it's improved over time. I've been at this for over 2 decades. It's improved in that now we have more people than ever who are interested in strength training for the autism population. But we also need to understand that it is not just as simple as here, do this exercise, here, do this exercise. It's understanding the physical, the adaptive, the cognitive capabilities of that particular individual, and prioritizing strength training so that it has a higher place in the world in general, but specifically for our autism population, because they are going to age, and in doing so, on that timeline, they are subject to many of the same medical and physical issues that we know come with aging. But what if we could be proactive and be preventative and also provide something that is going to enhance their capabilities all around? And that would be strength training. So I hope this has been helpful. I know it's a little bit theoretical, but it sets the tone for fitness, particularly strength training, being a foundation for the autism population. It's just the fact that it really isn't looked at that way right now, because for 100 years, strength training has created fear, it's created confusion, and the medical community it's not even that the medical community is against it, it's just not the area of expertise for most, physicians or most therapists. And so relegated to the fitness world, again, we need to have a standard of practice, because we're not just talking about working with neurotypical individuals. We're talking about a particular population that has some very particular needs physically, behaviorally, and cognitively. And that's why elevating the demand and the understanding of how important and how critical, again, I know I've used this word a few times, critical strength training is for this population, just elevates the practice as well. And if you want to elevate your practice, there is, of course, the Autism Fitness Pro Certification. There's the link. You can learn more about the course. It's a combined online, self-paced, and then full day hands-on practical that you can attend in person or virtually wherever you are in the world. And in the meantime, definitely pick up a copy of Stronger, The Untold Story of Muscle in Our Lives by Michael Joseph Gross. Fantastic read, even if you've never trained before. I was really happy that I grabbed this, and there are certainly life lessons in there. And ultimately, we want strength training to be a pillar of life skills for the autism population so that they get the most out of their lives as well. I'm Autism Fitness founder Eric Chessen, leading the movement for movement. I'd love to know what you think. Leave your thoughts, leave your questions in the comments below. Love to answer those questions in a future video. Thank you for watching. Oh, and before I forget, please definitely subscribe, and share these videos with someone for whom they might make a difference. The Autism Fitness Movement for Movement is about education and developing the highest quality standards. And that starts with maybe even just sharing this clip. 5, head up, 6, good rep, get 2 more, and up, 7, there you go, last one, down and drive up, 8, okay, good finish.